Hi, I'm Amy Edwards, and welcome to the Edwards Table. This podcast is all about real conversations, the kind that come from life, love, family, friendship, and all the messy, beautiful parts in between. I started this show because I believe in redemption stories and in sitting down together to talk about the things that shape us, heal us, and sometimes just make us laugh. So grab a seat, take a breath, and join me, because there's always room for you here at the Edwards Table. Well, hey y'all, welcome to the Edwards Table. If you are a newcomer, we are so excited you're here. My name is Amy Edwards, and I'm delighted to be the host of this podcast called the Edwards Table. This dream grew out of something that a very dear friend thought would be a great way for me to share my story. So if you are new here and haven't already listened, I'd highly recommend jump over to listen to season 1 sometime, and you can actually hear my whole story, the highlights anyway. But this season and season 2, just glad to be back at it and actually jumping over into my kitchen. This is kind of my happy place where I love to make things and do stuff, be creative and all the things. So for those of you who have been with us, golly, cannot even begin to say thank you enough. Love you all, love being on this journey with you of being brand new to podcasting, brand new to even experiencing podcasts, because this is not something that I was really much into before last year. So ironically, here I am hosting one, so you're welcome. So today, what I have brought to the table to kind of talk through with you all is something that I think a lot of us struggle with. And the reason why I say this is because the number of people whose paths have crossed mine in literally just this past week, it's been several who we share a common thread in our stories, and that is the concept of conditional love. And I don't know, you all, like coming into 2026, I'm not a New Year's resolutions gal. Like I don't do those every year, like at the beginning of the year, give myself this list of 10 things I'm going to change about all the things and whatever else. Personally, I don't like failing that quickly in life. And so statistically speaking, you're going to, unless of course, shout out to John Acuff, like I think he's written, I don't know, what is he up to, 12 books or something like that, but he has some incredible tips and tricks. And then also James Clear, Atomic Habits. Like there are people out there that are writing great ideas for how to maintain goals. So don't hear me say you can't, but also it is difficult. And when maybe you have been in a situation of, whether it be in your childhood or even in your adult years, of experiencing love but conditionally, right? Where it's a transactional relationship where you do this and then I'll be kinder to you or I'll do what you want. That's what I'm talking about when I say like conditional love. And I've just heard several people who have been struggling with relationships that they have, albeit with maybe a spouse or a sibling or a friend or a parent that shows their love in a conditional way. And if you're like me and you are a follower of Jesus, right, and you have a relationship with him, he has the ultimate love. It is the ultimate love. He is love. So when you think about like what love is, in my mind, I'm going to talk from that perspective. And so when I think about that, I think of what Jesus did in terms of coming down from heaven onto earth as a brand new baby, growing up and living 33 years here on the planet, right? And what he endured in order to be able to relate to us, but also obviously to save us from eternal death. So there's that. But I think about that, and I actually was having a great conversation earlier today about this exact concept of we as humans cannot fathom completely what that love actually looks like. Unconditional love. love that does not require you doing anything, thinking anything, saying anything, feeling anything, checking off the checklist, being a certain skin color, eye color, hair color, size and shape. Like there's nothing that you do in order to earn it. It's unearnable. You cannot earn this love. That's unconditional. I think the closest picture we have to that would be as a spouse. So willing to lay your life down for this person, right? And when I say lay your life down, I don't mean just like, catch a grenade for you kind of a situation, but also laying what your desires are, laying those down in order to love this person to the fullest. Or also, I think the love of a parent. So when you love your child in a way that you are willing to lay yourself down for them. So again, obviously, taking a bullet for our kiddos kind of a thing, yes, but also, I mean that much on a deeper level in terms of like, I am willing to say no to myself in the moment in order to say yes to my child, to love them well in that way. And so I've just like been mulling this concept of conditional versus unconditional love. And I've shared on social media, and I think it was last episode that I was sharing about kind of my focus for this year for myself in the year of 2026 is really on how to look at myself in the mirror and truly love the woman I see. Now, I am definitely a work in progress in terms of this whole idea, and it's something that I've worked on over the course of many years. But there are 3 facets that I've been working on, and this idea of loving myself, one of the big pieces of actually doing this and practicing loving who I am, one is to actually own who I know that God created me to be. So if you are not familiar, throughout the Bible, God talks about his creation, and we are part of that, right? And so I look at that and I think he knows the number of hairs on my head. He knew me before he knit me together in my mother's womb, that I am fearfully and wonderfully made in his image. Like, just those 3 concepts alone are mind-boggling to me. But like, to think in terms of the creator of the universe having the capacity to not only envision, think of, and create me, but with a planned purpose of the time that he has me on this earth, the people's paths that I'm going to cross while I'm here. And he's done that for billions and billions and billions of people, because he's done it for everyone. And I think about that. And then when I sit back and truly think about unconditional love, there's a caveat to that that's sometimes really hard. And I think that if you're a parent, or if you have parents, which all of you do, albeit it may be a great thing, it may not, I don't know. But from a parent's perspective, right, we want, and I think most parents do, not all, I mean, there are some parents out there who definitely need the Lord, but for the most part, parents are wanting what's best for their children. And sometimes we have to tell our kids no, albeit because it's for a safety reason, right? No, you cannot play in this street. The cars will run over you. No, you cannot eat candy for your breakfast. It will make you sick. As they get older, no, you cannot go over to that person's house. They are not a good influence on your life. No, you may not stay out all hours of the night without me knowing where you are and, being home by a certain time. And what's interesting is, and I think for me, part of why I've been thinking a lot about this concept, one is I've experienced conditional love by many people, and painfully so. What happened for me in that situation, or in those situations, is that I had to really lean into what this concept of unconditional really means. Like, I have a really hard time understanding that Jesus loves me unconditionally, because I've been taught by people who love me that love is transactional. Like, if you're not doing or saying or acting or looking or whatevering away, then I am not going to transact with you in a positive light. And so for me personally, love is a really hard thing. And God bless John. For those of you who don't know, that's my husband. Also, if you want to see some funnies, check out a few episodes this season. He's been on here with me a couple of times. But like, John comes from a place of just a whole family. And not to say his mom and dad were perfect. None of us have perfect parents. None of us are perfect parents. I don't ever want you to hear me say that. But he came from a household where his mom and dad loved the Lord. They loved their children. They truly taught them the best that they knew how with what they had. And so for John, his father actually passed away before I knew him. And so I've only known his mom, but his mom is someone who truly exhibits unconditional love. Truly. Not always is it perfect. And again, I don't ever want to put anybody up on a pedestal that I shouldn't. But I know in terms of her children and in terms of her grandchildren, no matter how far they stray off of the path, her door is always open. Her arms are always open, and not to say that any of us have been perfect with her either. So he came from that, whereas the men that were in my life growing up were in and out, were either abusive to me, abusive to my mom, or abusive to both of us. And so for me, the concept, especially of an unconditional love from a father, I have a very, very, very warped sense of what that looks like. And I have had to work really hard along the way to understand that there is truly a place of unconditional love that we can go to. And so throughout my marriage, John and I just celebrated 29 years of marriage. And in today's age, that's a hoo-hoo-hoo moment, because I feel like we're an anomaly in a lot of circles. And a big part of how we arrived here is that John's been willing to unconditionally love me through some really hard times. Saying yes to a person who has my background, who has been through some of the things I've been through, I bring a lot of emotional baggage into our relationship. And it took me many years of prayer, of therapy with a professional therapist, of willingness to allow myself to deal with the past, and then also to allow myself to heal. And not always, he would tell you this, not always is he perfect at loving me that way. I've said this many times, I'm a porcupine. To love me, like, I will quill the stew out of you if you have maybe overexerted your hugging or something, or prying of my personal space. I'm not always the gentlest of humans when it comes to that. But I'm super cute to look at. Like, I'm so fun until you freak me out, and then I quill you to death. But all this to say, that's one thing for John that he would tell you too, is he doesn't know how to quit on us. He may not always do our relationship with excellence, and he may not always be proud of maybe some things he said or decisions he's made, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, he's never quit when it's come to us. Of the two of us, I was much more willing to walk away from our marriage, and actually had a whole plan for that when the kids were younger, because I just felt like I probably had done enough for him to be willing to walk away in our relationship, of me stepping back and kind of standing in the gap of being like a a checklist of a woman. So like a cook and a nanny, and quite frankly, I told him at one point a prostitute is what I felt like. And thankfully, during that season in our marriage, we very easily, we could have walked away from each other very easily. And it wouldn't have been a nasty divorce, I don't think. I think, just given who the two of us were at that time. But there was something that happened over the course of a weekend, and I had this kind of epiphany moment, of this realization moment, if you will, where it's just like a light switched on in my head. And ironically enough, it happened for him too. Over the course of that same weekend, I had gone away on a girls' trip, and it was pivotal for us. But again, I mean, you're talking, that was, I'm trying to think, maybe 8 to 10 years into our marriage. I think like year 9, year 10. And I'll tell y'all, like, that is the hardest season of marriage typically for people, is between the years of like 7 to 12. Somewhere in there, you're going to come to a place, if you're married, you're going to come to a place in your marriage. And it may not be those exact years for you, but I know statistically speaking, this is when it typically happens. Many, not most, maybe now, I'd have to look at stats, but a big number of people, when they get divorced, it's usually during those years. And the why behind that is marriage is not a feeling. Marriage is not about how physically fit your wife is, guys, to look at. And women, it's not about the fact that your husband still knows how to date you. Marriage is the willingness to say yes every single day to that person, no matter how hard, how angry, how frustrating, how exhausting, how mundane, how unspicy, how boring marriage can be. And it can get that way. It's the willingness to show up and say yes. It's the willingness to do the hard work, to love your loved one through really not fun times. I mean, I had major hip surgery a few years back, and I assure you, one John Edwards did not love having to lift me up over the little threshold of the shower on a day-to-day basis and watch me take a shower on a shower chair. Not sexy, y'all. That was pretty nasty and not fun to watch. Also humiliating for me. Learning how to walk again after 10 weeks on crutches, not fun, not cute at all. So marriage, obviously, hanging in when it's not fun to hang in. And that is a great picture of that unconditional love. Again, it's not this emotional thing where you always have the butterflies. Not to say you don't. I still get butterflies. John Edwards still gives me butterflies and makes me giggle and smile, sometimes because he's inappropriate, and other times because he knows just what to say to get a smile. But like, those are the things that I've really been thinking about lately, as I'm trying to focus on that for this year, right? Like, I'm trying to love myself well, spiritually, physically, and emotionally. Those 3 places I want to love myself well. And not having a good teacher of unconditional love as a young person, but then marrying someone who was loved unconditionally was such a beautiful gift. And like I said, and I will say it always, nowhere in any of my story is there perfection, y'all, except for Jesus himself. Like, we're not perfect at it. If you know us personally, you're probably howling right now if you're listening, because there's anything but perfection when it comes to the Edwards here. So I don't know. I've really been wrestling with that lately, and I say wrestling. I think it's more of being cognizant of it lately, because I'm wanting to be so intentional about loving myself well. And then the why behind that, like the why behind loving myself well, one is I have a responsibility as a mom to my adult children to emulate, imitate, and show them, like, through my actions and words, what that really looks like, so that hopefully I'm setting a good example for them in the stages that they are in their lives. Both of my kids in their 20s, both of them figuring out who they are, where they're headed. That's really your 20s, right? It's like truly learning who you are. And a big piece of that, if you can learn in your 20s to truly love who God intended you to be, Your 30s is where you really lean into that and actually run like the wind toward it. So yeah, that's kind of where I've been there. And knowing when I listen to my internal conversations with myself, I am so brutal. I am like, I would literally, I can't think of another human I would ever speak to the way I talk to myself. Ever. Like, no way would I ever do that. But I have this vocabulary with myself where I say things like, oh, Amy, you're such an idiot. Or, ugh, that was just stupid. Why would you do that? Or, why are you even trying this? You know you're not going to be good. Or, who do you think you are? Like, who literally are you to think that you could do this or you could say this or anybody's going to listen to that out of you? And what's interesting is that when I give myself time to pause and actually think about what I've said to myself, what happens is that initial statement to me internally, I say that, and then there's this whole list that comes in behind it of, just nastiness to myself. And what it does is it then takes me down this whole spiraling rabbit hole of just despair and depression. Excuse me, because it flips the switch of, do you remember in third grade when all the kids stood around you and laughed at you because of this? And then when you were in high school, when everybody said this about you, and then when you went to college, this, and then the choice that you made when you were in your 20s, and then the thing that you did as a mom that you never should have. Or, I mean, y'all, it just turns into this whole thing. And it winds up taking me to a place of getting super blue. I personally, I don't struggle with chemical depression, like diagnosis of the chemicals of my brain that this goes to. However, because I am a woman and God bless our hormones, Lord help, there are those times of like getting into what I call like that blue state, of being sad and it being really difficult to make good choices for myself of like, get up, go do something of value to you for today, to where I get frozen and I get stuck in those days. I find too, side note about like kind of health-wise and where I am in my age, right? I'm 51, and there's this beautiful thing that happens to your body as a woman when you get into especially into your 40s and 50s, some in your 30s, bless your heart. Oh, bless all the hearts that are around you. But this fabulous thing called perimenopause, it is teenage hormones on speed, pregnancy hormones on speed. Like add those two together and then smack them into a woman's body. And it's like the roller coaster that you get on emotionally and physically I don't even know how to explain it. But it also, I think, helps us to slow down because our bodies just will freeze and be like, yeah, we're not doing that today. And so it helps us to slow down and actually pause and think. And so when I do have those moments, I want to be able to speak well into myself. When I have those days where, I pop my mouth off, which I am notorious for, my filter gets lost because I don't put it on, and things just spill out of my mouth, and I just want so desperately to pull them back in and be like, oh, yes, that's how I felt, but that's not really what I meant when I said those words. I just want to be more cognizant of speaking better, and so to myself. And so I think that's kind of why I landed where I did with wanting to love myself well this year, and how vitally important it is. But I also know that's why this concept of unconditional love is so, so valuable to me. And I know it is for all of us, right? Like to know that someone loves us so much that they would not only lay their life down for us, but also that they know every single thing that we're going to do or say or think that's wrong. But they're still willing to lay their life down for us. And it's just such a beautiful gift, unconditional love is. And also, it's such a big gift that our wee little human brains can't even wrap around how beautiful it truly is. So that is where my headspace has been this past week. And just thinking about all my friends and people that I love that are out there that also are thinking about this same concept for whatever the reason may be. And really leaning into the fact that, thankfully, if you are a believer, you know you don't have to have it all together because, spoiler alert, y'all, we will never have it all together on this side of glory, ever, ever, ever. We will make mistakes. We're going to continue making mistakes day in, day out. We're going to continue having thoughts that run through our heads that are inappropriate, that are nasty and ugly, that are mean and hateful, that are full of all kinds of vim and vigor. And that's just a reality of being a human being. We live in a very fallen world, lots and lots of messiness around us. But beautifully, we have the ability to say yes to someone who indeed did lay his life down for us, who does indeed love us unconditionally, who knew us before even this world was created and said, you know what? I need you here because I have a plan and a purpose just for you that's going to impact so many people around you, people that you will never even know their names, people that you will know very intimately, people that you will know as acquaintances. There are probably thousands and thousands, if not millions of people whose life you will impact depending on how many days you are on this planet. That is just, it's so beautiful to me. And that is one thing that's a gift about my faith, is that it helps me remember that I don't have to know it all. I don't have to have it all together. But golly, at the end of the day, when no matter how rotten of a human being I've been for that day, that no matter what, I'm still loved. And there's still plan and purpose. And I can still try again one more time tomorrow. That grace is such a beautiful gift. So, y'all, I just love being here. I love it. And I don't love it because it makes me feel good all the time. I assure you, I'm petrified to be here many days. Or I'm like a grumpy Gert and I don't really want to do it every day. Or I let that voice inside my head lie to me and tell me that my story is not valuable, that my story can't help others, that my story is a waste of time to tell. Those are all lies, y'all. That's not the truth. I know better. But it's easy to believe the lies. It's much, much easier. Oh, okay, here's a nugget. Much, much easier to believe the lies than it is to accept the truth. Oh, isn't that y'all, that's so good for me this week. That's so true. It's so much easier to believe the lies than it is to accept the truth. Because the lies are what keep us down, keep us sad, keep us addicted, keep us suffocating, keep us in the wrong spot, keep us in the wrong place, keep us making the wrong decisions. Believing the lies does that for all of us. But when we're willing to step back into that light, get out of that darkness and step back into that light, it's painful. It's not easy, but golly, making those decisions, it feels really hard in those moments because those lies really turned into our truth, y'all. I'm going to have to continue to remind myself of that day in and day out so I don't get stuck. And I hope that you'll do that too. I hope that when you look at yourself in the mirror, that you truly love the person that you see. And if you don't, I would highly recommend figuring out what it is that's holding you back. And then make a choice to move forward. Because y'all, loving who you see in that mirror, it doesn't mean you're perfect. I mean, good grief. Like, no. And you're probably never going to be perfect in your own eyes. I doubt you will. And if you are, then that's another conversation we'll have for another day. But loving that person, think about how much you were loved as a kid, or that you love your kids if you're a parent, or love a dear friend or a sibling, like someone who you love dearly. They're not perfect. They do stuff all the time. They probably hurt you and have done things too. But you would do anything for them and you love them with your whole heart. That's how you should feel about yourself too. That's what you should feel when you look in that mirror, because there is absolutely plan and purpose for you. And I hope you'll come back and join me again next week. I'm here every Wednesday. And y'all, the other fun thing that I just started doing is I started popping into here to the kitchen and creating just a fun spot to come and let me share recipes with you. So I've got a hint over here to my right, your left, I think. I don't know. I can't remember how this whole camera thing works. Remember, I'm new at this. But on this side of me, if you're listening, not watching, I have a great big white, gorgeous bowl from a friend, and it's filled with veggies. And I'm going to share a recipe that I do quite often for my family. It's called Clean Out Your Veggie Drawer. So if you're interested, definitely pop over to YouTube if you're not there already, and come watch later this week. But stay tuned. I'll be in the kitchen sharing some more fun things. And in the meantime, always know this. I love being here. You are so special to me. And this at the Edwards table, we always have a seat just for you. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure to stop by again next week. I'm here every Wednesday with a new episode. Take care, y'all. See ya.